Welcome, everybody, to This Is Difficult. It's a podcast. You're here watching it. Let's hope we say anything relevantly good. Oh, and I'm your host, Lord Yeshua. We're just going to start. This is Difficult, the podcast. Oh, I'm not the only host. We also got Paul, Ryugami-san. You're on his channel. And
hopefully we can hear everyone.
It's Zach over there, and my name is Josh. And wow, thanks for stopping in, guys. Just so nice to be on this. And
another absolute fire intro from Josh over here.
No idea what I'm saying.
The king of introductions.
Ah, shucks. Maybe one of my better ones. I completely blanked out before I.
That's anyway, the key. You get into that flow state.
Exactly. Kick it off to
Is
Paul.
That where we're going with this?
Just what we're doing this week. We got a big juicy one starting off a new series.
Yeah, we are starting off a new series. I'm really excited about it. I really hope the audio is good this time because the audio from last week was trash.
There's no one watching, so we don't know.
Oh, I don't know yet. Anyway, but
all of you guys don't watch.
Probably after last week, people are like, I don't know about this show. This is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But
kick it up a notch this week.
Yeah, that's the hope. So the new series that we're going to be doing is going through the different generations of game consoles. Talking about, kind of like certain highlights, history, how the games held up, how the consoles held up, things like that. Pretty excited to talk about it. It should be fun. But before we get into all that, we have a couple other things. Usually just talk about our weeks and, what games we played and stuff. So, Josh, why don't you kick us off with that? Yes. How was your week, man?
A fun week. Grand. Let's see. Did we already do the Donkey Kong thing? Yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago. So we already talked about that. Secured my sub 2 record in Donkey Kong.
That's so good. That's so fast.
Firmly fifth place now. And have my eyes set on fourth and working on tech for that as we speak. A lot of off-stream practice. So we might not see another stream for like a week or two actually because I really gotta like hone this shit. A deathless run will do it. And then me and Colin started, we were playing Ocarina of Time. We basically 100%ed it. We got all the items. We just haven't beat Ganon yet. But like we got everything. And it feels pretty cool. You just get like all of it. But it feels small. I think the game is small. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we played,
it's not huge, especially when compared to modern games. There was a lot of limitations back then.
But I'm not saying those are are like the right size. Those might be too big even, but Ocarina of Time maybe feels a little small to 100%. Majora's Mask is a lot bigger, which is weird. But anyway.
Well, because it incorporates that kind of collectathon mentality.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We also played a lot of mods. Jiggies of Time was pretty fun. It's basically a replica of Ocarina of Time using Banjo-Kazooie.
That's so freaking cool.
It uses the Banjo-Kazooie engine with Banjo-Kazooie and then the complete textured overlays of all of Ocarina of Time. And the music is even redone with like Banjo-Kazooie notes and like all of the Ocarina of Time score. Like this guy it took him years to do this. Incredible. It was really amazing. But then like, it's not the same. Like the depth is kind of different. So like some of the levels are too big. So we were getting kind of tired at the end. We're like, all right, but it was really good. Very impressive. So we'll probably come back to that. And then Sky, I can't remember the full name of this game. Children of Balls. I don't know. Sky.
Balls.
It's just, if you type in Sky, it'll come up. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's only on PC. I probably don't know. It's on other things, and the Switch. I know it's on the Switch, and it's like a mobile game too. So it's definitely like a gacha game, but like not really because you don't like need, literally don't need to gacha anything. It's all like cosmetics and like all things that you can unlock.
It's coming, dude.
You can like level up faster and like unlock like cosmetics and shit. But okay, so here's what the game is. It's completely online server co-op. So you can interact with anyone online at any time. And like literally we were hanging out with like 10 other people like at a given time and you can befriend them and then it like pulls them into your world and you can like see their form. It's really fucking cool. And basically it's like Journey co-op. It's Journey meets Breath of the Wild with no fighting. Online co-op and flying is the main mechanic, and you fly through this like gorgeous landscapes that are constantly changing and very Journey-esque, and you complete puzzles and like unlock stuff and like increase your skills together. And like the more people, the more like difficult puzzles you can accomplish better. And there's some things that require like a lot of people actually. It's crazy.
That's really cool.
It's really cool, and a lot of people are just like there. So you're like, oh, cool, that guy helped me finish the thing. That's neat. Both got, and it's always equal. There's no like grabbing the prize first. It's all fairly distributed. It's a really cool game, cool concept.
That does actually sound really cool.
It's free.
Yeah.
It's free. It's a free game. The issue is the cutscenes and loading screens, and like the cutscenes are cool, and it's literally like me and Colin were like blazing through. So like if we go backtrack and like look around, there's no cutscenes, But if you're blazing through, there's a good amount of cutscenes that kind of cut content. And then the loading is kind of annoying. There's like a bunch of loading in between areas, but that's like bringing it down like a few points. But it's really fucking fun. It's meant to be co-op. I recommend you guys download this like tonight for sure, and then we should all like review it together actually. And definitely
that'd be cool to do
a this is
difficult versus
difficult versus Sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Sure.
Literally everyone download this game. Like it's strangely alluring. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it like feels like you're playing a Zelda game with all the puzzles and that kind of fun stuff. And then you just like fly through these intense, incredible, just beautiful landscapes and just like gorgeous graphics. And you're just like, this is just fucking awesome to play. And there's no real rewards except for cosmetics and upgrades to your flying abilities and being able to do cooler and cooler puzzles.
I'm in.
And that's it.
Nice.
That's it. It's really cool. But anyway, we'll review that later. That's all I played. Yeah, that's some more banjo mods, and it was a fun week.
Sweet.
What's
Zach,
that play?
Tell us about your week.
Pretty quiet week, although other than some stuff that I'll talk to you guys about off the air. But the big gaming for me was Spider-Man. I played more Spider-Man. Continued the plot, and oh my god, it gets good. Second act is fantastic. Ooh. And introduces some really rad characters. But the big one for me was I got Metroid Fusion working on my TV. I think I mentioned that on the show last week.
So much better than anything for the PS5. Come on.
Yes. Yes, it is. Dude, no, Paul, come on. No, you haven't seen it. He hasn't seen it. He hasn't seen it upscaled on the TV
Mega
yet.
Man X.
I mean, I've played Fusion on an emulator on a monitor.
Yeah, but like when you're like it's the real deal, dude. I put the cartridge in the machine and it upreses it, and it's beautiful.
It's tied with the best games for the PS5. Come on.
Demon's Souls Remaster, or I mean remake.
Quality of game, dude. Fusion is like a 10. Fusion is like
Fusion's so good.
It's my favorite Metroid game. It's my favorite.
I would rate it as high as I rated Dread. Maybe like 1 point lower.
Yeah,
but like not even.
Yeah,
super good. And just sitting here and with the Super Nintendo controller, which is my favorite controller, on my favorite screen in my favorite chair, playing one of my favorite Metroid games, it feels so freaking good. It felt like coming home. It felt like coming home, and like
minus the home.
Yeah, I was thinking it. Wasn't gonna say it.
I was like, how do I say this without being disgusting? No way.
Oh, that's hilarious.
As you were.
Where do we find these people?
Online, of course.
Yeah, clearly.
Zach is firing us both and getting new co-hosts.
Yeah, that's his podcast now. Oh, that's a good one.
I'm annexing this podcast in the name of what is it, the Galactic Federation? I don't even know what Samus works for
That's
anymore.
the Samus thing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. Now she doesn't work for them because they're all they betrayed her basically.
Yep. But no,
Spoilers.
it was a lot of fun. And
Spoilers.
I'm looking forward to that's true. I'm looking forward to coming back to it this week. And other than that, that's pretty much been my gaming for the week.
Paul's still smiling about that joke.
I know he is. Go to bed, both of you.
Very cool. I had a good week too. I mean, yeah, pretty decent week. I'm still mostly just playing Souls games because I'm an addict, I think. They're really awesome. So I'm now on to the New Game Plus in both Demon's Souls Remastered and a remake and Dark Souls Remastered on the Switch, and I also started a character in Dark Souls Remastered on the PlayStation as well. Gonna be reviewing Dark Souls Remastered tonight. It'll be probably a quick review because I've just been, gushing about these games way too much lately, so I don't want to like overdo it. Plus, we got a pretty beefy topic tonight, so I'm excited about
for
that.
The next, 8 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, next few weeks for sure. At least 3 weeks. We've got some pretty dope topics lined up. So but possibly more. Anyway, I also played Okami, which is a fantastic game. It was a gift from one of our members, one of our homies, RPD. He gave that to me for Christmas, and I've been playing that, the HD remaster on PC. I started that for Samurai Saturday this week. So yesterday.
I was so bummed that my boss just wouldn't go away yesterday, so I could watch. By the time he went away, you were done.
So I'll say this about that game. It's, if you like Zelda games, this is basically a Zelda game. And it's
nice.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how it looked originally. I never played the original.
Honestly,
it doesn't hold up as well.
No, I didn't think so. And I played it like 10 years ago.
The HD remaster's fantastic. I will say this: it does incorporate like a painting mechanic, and I think that would be
on the Wii. Not
I
the
was
GameCube,
gonna say it would be really good on the Wii or like even the Switch or something like that. Being able to use motion controls for the painting.
A full remake.
I'm playing it on PC, so I don't get the motion controls. I have to use a stick, but it still works really well, and it feels really natural.
Sold really well on the PS2 also.
Does it work with mouse and keyboard? Because I wonder if like a drawing tablet would work.
Cool. You know what? It does. The default controls are mouse and keyboard. I didn't try it. I just plugged in a controller and started using.
Very cool.
That'd be really cool. That'd be a really cool way to play it.
You get like an actual canvas and an electric paintbrush.
How cool would that be?
Exactly. Like that's literally what this is, Josh.
And then at the end of the game, you have a real painting, and you just like hang it up.
Well, that's another thing about the game that I love is like there's all sorts of beautiful artwork throughout the game too. Like the game itself feels like a piece of art, but then they also have like in like the bestiary or whatever, you can look at like the different monsters and stuff from the game, and it's all done in like that Japanese like ukiyo style of art, and it's really beautiful. It's really cool. So I'm actually very impressed with that game. I'm excited to continue with that. Other than that, it's just life as usual. So it's
life.
It's good. Life is good. So we might as well just jump right into the review. And then we can get into our topic, because that topic's going to be juicy. So no need to further gild the lily or something. I don't know. Yeah. So where is Zach?
Is that the game?
Well, Zach is missing, and I think I know why.
Who said
Let me see if I can get you into this.
I see what you mean.
Oh, no.
Oh, I see.
Oh, God.
Well, there's me, so that's okay.
Yeah, I might have to fix Zach later. Zach, you're here in spirit, man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we can even hear you, actually, now that I think about it. Let me fix this real quick, and then we'll do the review. Let me see if this fixes it. Hopefully it does. It did not. Control V OBS, that looks good. Let me see if I can reset the scaling on this. Transform. Reset transform. There he is. We got him. I fixed him. I gotta scale him down a little bit, but he's here. There we go. We got Zach. All right, so the game we're reviewing today
is
Dark Souls Remastered.
Just kidding.
I played this game on both the Nintendo Switch and on the PS4, but I completed it on the Nintendo Switch. It's developed by From Software. This came out, the remaster came out on May 24th, 2018. It's available on the Nintendo Switch, the PS4, the Xbox One/One X, and PC. What's really great about this? What was that?
Not PS5.
Well, I mean, it works just. I'm playing it on PS5, yeah, but this was 2018 is when it came out. So, so yeah. The really nice thing about the remaster on the more powerful consoles is the game plays at 60 frames per second, and it's got like the upgraded textures and everything like that. On the Switch, it still plays remarkably well. In fact, I was super impressed. It even has tolerable load times, which is always something that's been, kind of a pain point for these games in general. And so to have decent load times on what would be considered an underpowered system for this generation is fantastic. It's locked at 30 frames per second, so that's great as well. It would be ideal if it was 60, but the fact that it doesn't really ever dip below 30 is nice. Being able to play a Souls game handheld is fantastic.
So dumb.
Oh my God, this is what I've been wanting. Ever since I played Neo and finished that game, I've wanted this type of experience handheld. And this is it. So that's frankly, absolutely fantastic. I couldn't ask for more. Well, I could. I want more of these games.
I want more.
But
I couldn't ask.
I'm asking right now. Please do more good Souls. Like, there's about 1 million really shitty like Souls knockoffs. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Sure, Nintendo brand's Souls game.
I think it would be unique with a new guy.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'd be in for it.
Give us a new person.
But yeah, to continue with our typical points on the review, what did I like about this game? Well, it's not the first Souls game, but it definitely, brings the Souls formula forward and polishes up some of the things that Demon Souls kind of had issues with. There's a bigger assortment of weapons, techniques, all sorts of things that really kind of cemented what makes the genre what it is. And these are all good things. If obviously Souls games are a niche thing. If you don't want to play something that's going to be a continuous struggle, then maybe these games aren't for you. But if you want a game that you can put in the time and really learn the system and how the game is designed, it's one of the most rewarding experiences you could ask for in a video game. And I've also compared these games to like grown-up Zelda. You know what I mean? Like, not that I don't mean that as a knock on Zelda, but if I was to take the Zelda formula and evolve that into something for hardcore gamers,
there's no puzzles though.
This is probably what I would do. You know what I mean?
Puzzles.
No, yeah, you're right. There's not many puzzles. There are some. But I've never had. But you're right. There's not Zelda caliber puzzles. You're absolutely right.
But I know what you
But as far as like the adventure part of it is concerned, it nails it, I think. That kind of lone warrior kind of,
silent protagonist.
Exactly. What did I not like about the game? Well, there's plenty not to like about Souls games as well. They are very punishing. They are very brutal. And that's part of the design philosophy. And so that's something that, you kind of have to be okay with going into it. There's no hand-holding at all in these games. The story, while fantastic, is super buried in little chunks that you have to seek out, that you never really necessarily know where they are. So those types of things could be conveyed a little better. Well, so there's no like
the lore chunklets, you mean?
Yeah, there's absolutely no guidance in this game.
It's like
front.
Hollow Knight.
You don't have. Yeah, so I've never played Hollow Knight, but I would assume
you like see things that are supposed to you're supposed to understand based on like what the world is telling you and like what the characters are like depicting, less than like someone telling you exactly what's going on.
There's zero exposition in these games.
There is some in 3. but very
so like how you get your story is by talking to NPCs, reading like flavor text on items, things like that is how you get the story. And it's actually a really deep, crazy story. But if you just play through the game, not only, if you're just playing through blind, not only is it highly likely you're not going to finish the game because you won't know where to go, but you're probably going to miss a lot of the story. So these are games that I would actually highly advise playing with friends that are familiar with it or using a walkthrough. Because, otherwise, unless you're one of those people who's super detailed oriented and likes to do like super deep exploration and pay attention to every little minute detail, there's going to be a lot lost on you. So, that's kind of something that the
only reason I'm not like that with Souls games is because it's so punishing to be like that. Like usually like the best secrets are the hardest to find and you die like 100 times just trying to find these things you don't even know where they are.
Yeah. So that's like rough. I would say that's probably my biggest criticism of the game, but it's also kind of what makes these games unique. It kind of makes them what they are. So, it's hard to really like damn the game for that. Though that is probably the weakest thing for me. Anyway.
But is it artificial difficulty?
I don't think it is actually. I think actually, if you know how to play a Souls game, they're actually pretty easy games.
But if you hit it twice, you die. That's what the complaint was about Metroid Dread.
Yeah, but there's ways to mitigate that though. There's
in Metroid you dodge, same in this game.
I don't want to get into the weeds on that. I see what you're doing, and I appreciate that, and it's a fair argument. I'll give you that for sure.
But if you get good at Dark Souls, it's not as bad.
Though and there is a bit of artificial difficulty in these games. Like that. That's kind of goes with the territory. But in general, even the hardest bosses, there's usually a way you can cheese it, or there's like a particular weakness, or it's really like what this game demands of you is that you learn. If you don't learn from your mistakes, then you're not going to be successful in these games. Which is really big. I would say the other complaint, which is minor, that I have of this game is, and Souls games in general, for the most part, is the currency. Because I don't like having to spend my experience points, what's going to level me up, on items that I need.
It should be a separate thing for Souls.
I think it should be separate. And there are, like in Dark Souls 3, that is mitigated a little bit.
You get a lot of them.
Because you can sell items for souls and things like that. But there are some drawbacks still. Let's see. How was the story? Was it engaging? Well, so that's a two-part answer as well. It's an incredible story. Is it engaging? No. Because it doesn't give it to you. You have to find it. There's like crazy deep lore. There's stuff that would like make you cry, like the relationships between some of the characters. Like there's, one of the main bosses in the game like has this relationship with this wolf. They're like best friends, and he like sacrifices himself to protect this wolf and all this stuff. There's some really deep, like touching things that are hidden under so many layers. It's good. Is it engaging? I would say no. How's the gameplay? Was it fun?
Insane.
The gameplay is very addictive. One thing that I absolutely love about the Souls games is how chunky it feels, and I mean that in a good way. Like not even the fat roll. So like when you swing your sword and you make an impact with your sword, you feel it. You know what I mean? And it feels chunky. Like it feels like I'm doing that damage. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain without experiencing it. But it's a pretty unique feeling in video games. I think more video games should take cues from this. not only just like through like the feedback you get through your controller, but the sound design and the amount of damage that you do and things like that. So I think that's really unique. And I love that about this game. How's the art? I think that's one of the weaknesses in these games. While the environments can be extremely beautiful, FromSoft has had a little bit of a weakness when it comes to like character detail, right? Like your character in particular, even if you spend a lot of time in your character editor, most of the time you're going to still look like shit, you know? Though if you look at the skybox, it's beautiful. And a lot of the bosses have really beautiful design. So I think they do some things well and they struggle with some things. Certainly in the remaster, it everything looks a lot better than it did originally. So that's, you know, a plus for sure. The music, there's not much, you know, there is, but it's subtle and it's not bad, but it's not something that really stands out. Boss fights, certainly, you know, there's good music that gets you kind of amped up and makes you feel for what's going on. But the music doesn't really stand out the way it does in like a Nintendo game or something like that. Mm-hmm. The sound design is fantastic. Like I was saying earlier, with the kind of like chunky feeling gameplay, I don't. There's got to be a better word. Visceral. I don't know. There's got to be a better word for to describe how it feels. But like the sound design plays a big part in that. Like every movement, every action feels significant, and the sound design really helps to accomplish that feeling. How long did it take me? A long ass time. I don't know.
This game is very
I don't know.
long.
I honestly don't know. They're pretty long games, and especially if you're not using a walkthrough, they're even longer. I was following a walkthrough that was about, I think it was like a 36-part walkthrough, and each episode was about 20 minutes. So Jesus, you do the math. That's the amount of gameplay you're doing. And yeah, so there's no shortage of there's no shortage of gameplay in this in regards to the time you're going to spend in these worlds. Let's see what else. What's the game difficult? Yes, I mean that goes with the territory with the Souls game. It's incredibly difficult, but like I said, it's difficult but fair. Everything feels like it's a surmountable task, right? Like even though it might feel impossible at first, you'll take a couple tries at a certain boss or whatever it may be, and you'll learn like, oh, there's an opening here. I can use this technique here, you know? And it becomes, like I said earlier, if you know how to play a Souls game, they're actually not that hard. But it does require a lot of learning and growing, as Zach would say. So that's something to be said there. Would I play a sequel? Absolutely. I'm currently playing sequels for it. And you know, the game I'm most excited about coming out this year is Elden Ring. So, you know, definitely. Overall rating and impression. So as a game in general, we'll just do the remaster, because to be honest, I've never finished the original. So I don't think it'd be fair for me to rate that separately. I say this is a solid 9. It's a solid 9.
Nine's good.
It's very good. You know, it does have some drawbacks. The reason it's not a 10 is because of the things that it intentionally leaves out. And you know, there's some dated things in that in the game that I can't really hold against it in my score. So, were the game to come out in the state it is, as a brand new game, this would probably be like a 7-9, right? But for the time that it came out and as a remaster, it's solid, you know. Okay. So and yeah, I think that 9 is well deserved. The current price for this game is $20 pretty much across the board. There's sales for it all the time. I think I got this for like $7 or something like that on sale. So, just keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, on every platform, it's still $20, though I would say it's worth it. If you really love this style of game, you want the remaster, especially on the Switch, even though the graphics are a little scaled down and such, just having that experience mobile is priceless. Almost.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So anyway, that is my review of the Dark Souls remaster. Boom. All right, let's get back to the main thing. Swink. Wait for Josh to pop in. There we go.
A side note, Paul,
yeah.
There was a reason I wasn't talking there. You couldn't hear me on the capture.
Oh, really?
That's fine.
Son of a biscuit.
I wasn't going to stop you. You were in a groove, so hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah, we can hear you
right.
now. Yeah, I think I know why. I think I need to re-add you in. Yeah. So shoot. All right. I kind of tried to do that, but I half-assed it when I was trying to fix it. But
no, it's fine.
Right, we'll fix that.
Reacting. It's all good.
I'll make sure that I fix that before next week. I'll go through all the different scenes and fix that. Man, these sound issues have just been the worst. So, anyhow, we have a great topic today. It's the first episode in our series on the different console generations. So we're going to be talking about generation 1 of consoles, of video game consoles. Technically, some people consider the things that we're going to talk about generation 1 and generation 2. If you ask me, generation 2 starts with the Nintendo, so that's what we're going to go off of. Everything before that's Gen 1, in my book. Might not be technically correct for everyone, but there's so many of these consoles that came out within the same time period that I think it only makes sense to do.
Yeah. And I mean, you could even argue, like, I mean, there'll be some people who'd argue this is generation 0, right?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Like, because if you're starting your count,
I would say so. Actually,
Josh
I would say arcade systems.
The forefathers are not necessarily the originators, I feel like, because their ideas were like superseded very quickly by others. Yeah. But they came up with the tech for a lot of this stuff, so there's something to be said about a lot of this.
Sure.
But some of these are things that people haven't even heard of before.
Yeah, so. It also goes without saying that we're not young, but we're also not that old. So this kind of predates
NES.
Our generation of gaming. So it'll be a little difficult for us to really pinpoint everything, but I think we've got a lot of decent content that we can talk about here. I want to just start out by asking you guys if you've ever played a console older than the NES. Yes. Josh, let's start with you. Well, okay, yes.
The only thing I played older was an Atari, and I think it was a 2800, and Game & Watches, which I used to have 3 of. They were awesome.
Very nice. We'll be covering Game & Watches in our handheld series. We're going to do the handheld series separately.
But aside from those, arcade machines, does that count?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Zach, what about you? Have you played anything older?
I own an Atari of some kind. I don't know exactly what one it is. It's in the other room. So yes, I've definitely played games and consoles older than NES. I've definitely played an Atari 2600. We had one at the cabin where my friends owned it, and we would play Pac-Man and stuff like that all the doodah day.
My first game console was a 2600, and that my grandma gave us. And when that crapped out, we got whatever. There was a one later than that was backwards compatible to it. Ooh. I think it was like 5200, or maybe it was the 7200.
I think it might be the 52.
Regardless, that was my second game console. And so, yeah, I've got a little bit of experience with the Atari systems. I don't really have any experience with many of the other systems that we are going to talk about, but I still think it's important to talk about those. What are you guys' first memories of playing these older consoles? Zach, let's start with you on that.
I didn't get introduced to it until much later.
Okay.
So I was very confused by it, having been used to, at the time, Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, the very first console I ever played was a Super Nintendo, because and I say this all the time on my show, I didn't grow up with video games. The only times I had a chance to play them were at the after school program that I went to had a Super Nintendo, and we were allowed to play until we died. We had Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario World. That was it. And obviously I could play that game forever, because I got good at it pretty quickly, and got myself into trouble with that because everybody else is dying in seconds, and I'm just just gonna keep going now. And eventually I get bored and hand off the controller and go outside. But and the same thing at my buddy's house. He had a Super Nintendo, and that's what we played. So when his dad brought home an Atari from work, I was like, this looks really weird. Why is this so bad? I didn't put it together between, that there's a generational gap, or two generational gaps between that and what I was used to. So I kind of dismissed it pretty quickly. Yeah. But then when I went back in late high school, early college, I was like, oh my God, this is like the granddaddy. This is where it all came from. So it's always been a nostalgia thing for me.
Yeah.
I've never really had a perspective on it other than that.
Josh, what about you, man? Yeah. What are your first memories of playing?
Most of my original, honestly, were PC games. Now that I'm thinking about it, that were extra old, because my stepdad used to remake computers, and so those were ancient games, dirt old. But on the Atari and stuff like that, man, I don't even know. I really don't even remember. I think it was my friend was kind of a collector. He liked games, because I remember we played at Super Nintendo also. I think he was the Atari guy. I may have actually played ColecoVision, I feel too. I feel one of my friends had that, and it was just very brief.
Nice.
But it's all kind of, for me, it's kind of vague until I'm 4 years old playing Donkey Kong and Street Fighter, and then I have a Game Boy a year later.
Yeah.
And then 64.
For sure. For me, it was at my grandma's house. She's the one who gave us our console, and she also, she had one. And one of my, as far back as I can remember even going to her house in California, I remember the Atari being there in the front room on the big TV that's in this wooden furniture thing, those old TVs were, you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen one of those things? It's a legit piece of furniture, your television set is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we just sit on the floor in that living room and play games. My favorite game, my two favorite games back then, and probably still to this day when it comes to Atari, were Joust and Centipede. I absolutely would spend hours.
Centipede was so good.
So Centipede is still probably my favorite arcade cabinet. When I go to an arcade bar or whatever, and they've got Centipede, I'll sit there forever, because it's got the cool trackball and stuff.
Yep.
Oh man, so much fun. But yeah, with regards to Atari, those are probably my first memories, was going over to my grandma's house in California and sitting in that front room playing those games. And she had a ton of games, and we would just go through the list, including one we're going to talk about later, which is E.T., which is notoriously one of the worst games of all times.
No, not one of the worst games.
Maybe the worst.
The worst.
It's the worst game ever made that's been syndicated, basically.
Sure.
So obviously,
she had that
Newgrounds game.
What's funny is my brother and I spent hours playing that game trying to figure it out, and we didn't hate it. But we also
you can't figure it out.
Yeah, it was.
It's
it was bad. But yeah, so that's that. Why don't we go through the list of consoles that I would consider first gen, and this also kind of contributes to something that we're going to talk about a little later. as well. But like you'll notice, and there's a ton. And we even left some consoles out of this list that are not necessarily as popular or well known. But we'll just kind of start listing some of these off. And if you guys know anything about any of these consoles, feel free to add information.
Sure.
The first home video game console ever was the Magnavox Odyssey. And this console had like plastic overlays that you had to put over the screen to like add the color in.
Like, and people would like awkwardly, duct tape or Velcro the things to the screen.
Yeah.
I remember. So somewhere along the line, my grandfather must have had one because there was Velcro marks on, and it was one of those big furniture style TVs. There were Velcro marks on the corners of the TV.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He must have had either a Magnavox Odyssey or something else.
Yeah,
he didn't have it when we were around.
He's a crazy guy.
So this,
there's also that. Like my grandfather, I love him, but he was nuts.
Velcro.
Yeah, this console also had no sound, so it was just the basic games. I think it had like a Pong style game and a few others. But and you had to rely on this overlay to really know what was going on in the game, which is very interesting.
Imagine playing a game without sound. Like,
no,
I can't even fathom that anymore.
You're watching a movie without sound.
So the next one is the Rca Studio 2, which did have sound, but it came out of the controller instead of the TV.
I mean, I guess we have that now.
And again, very basic sounds like boops and beeps. And the controllers were permanently attached to the console, which is why this console wasn't as popular. In fact, I don't even know if they were like you could take them off and they had a cord. I think you had to like be
sit on your stomach and like awkwardly
on the console, which is wild. But this was the second programmable console ever. And what's interesting about a lot of these old consoles is you could program the games on the console, which is kind of wild.
Just debug menu open.
Kind of like really predates a lot of technology that we have these days. It was crazy. Let's see. Let's continue. The Fairchild Channel F included programmable games, right? So like you could alter the games then and there and make changes to those games, which was cool. Again, this was not a super popular console either. Home Pong, right? So like there was a console, and there was actually a bunch of different variations of this that literally just played Pong, and this was the first Atari console.
Yep. It was like, it looked like a tripod almost set up with two dials, or like it looked like a volume knob on a stereo.
Yeah.
And you controlled it that way, and it just kind of, and that was another one that I don't know that the controllers separated at all. I think you just had to lie on your stomach and
play it on the console itself.
And like just thinking about doing that is hurting my ribs.
This console did include a scoring system, which was the first time that a video game to this point had a scoring system, and it also had sound and color.
Amazing.
And the sound,
which is funny because Pong was black and white,
right?
Like predominantly.
Well, there some of the variations of the home Pong had other games included.
Yeah.
But and then comes the Atari 2600, which is kind of like what revolutionized home gaming at the time, and like really kicked off the video game craze, but was both like the beginning and the end for the first console generation to an extent. It definitely highly contributed to the video game crash, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Some other notable ones are the Bally Astrocade, which was a massive flop. The Magnavox Odyssey 2. So as you remember, the first console ever, Magnavox Odyssey, and then now we later have the Magnavox Odyssey 2. Intellivision, which was Mattel's first console ever, and also probably the biggest competitor to Atari. And And then we also had the Coleco Telestar series and the ColecoVision. And I added the Commodore 64 in there, though technically that's a personal computer.
I was going to say technically that's a PC because I had one of those.
Yeah.
And it was rad, but it was my dad's personal computer for a while.
Right.
We had the Apple IIe and the Apple IIgs. The 2E was mine, the 2GS was my mom's, and my dad somehow got his hands on the Commodore 64. We did have the Batman video game for it, which was a dumb platformer. It was like climbing, and there was brawler elements too. Yeah, it was Paul, we actually might want to look into it for Brawl Brothers. Like, it's not necessarily a brawl game, but it's
interesting,
so close. And I bet you it's emulated somewhere. It was fun. My brother and I logged a lot of hours on that Commodore 64, in between my dad needing it for work.
My neighbor across the street had a ColecoVision and a Commodore 64, and and he was an older dude, and like my dad would go over there and play it, but we never got to. We were shown it once, but we never got to hop on and play.
You may look at it and not play.
Yeah.
Well, that was also before my mom really like put it together that, if we sat then and played video games, we wouldn't go outside.
Right.
So like eventually she somehow like removed the Batman temptation from the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we just couldn't find it anymore.
To a certain degree, video games are part of the reason I spent so much time outside as a child, because we had an Atari. But my brother, who was older, you guys know him, he kind of bogarted that shit a lot.
Of course he did.
And so I had the choice of either watching him play that, which was fine, and I did a lot of that. I actually, for a large chunk of my life, preferred to watch video games than actually play them, probably because of that. Or go outside and play. That was my other choice, And, for me at the time, I'd rather go hang out with my friends than watch my brother play video games all the time. So, let's see. Let's move into the next little bullet point here. What consoles and games held up best from this generation, and why? I can firmly say, and you guys probably agree, the Atari 2600.
Yeah. It's certainly the most notable. But I think I've noticed a lot of people, going back these days and being like, okay, what else existed back then?
Mm-hmm. The Intellivision.
The Intellivision
is definitely up there. If we're counting the Commodore 64, absolutely, it's relevant.
Having a Coleco. Mm-hmm. You didn't say Coleco.
Coleco, yeah.
We did talk about Coleco.
I was getting there, Josh.
Okay.
ColecoVision definitely mentioned fairly regularly in these kinds of conversations, but when it comes down to it, I really do think the Atari 2600 it's the granddaddy.
Yeah,
everybody knows.
And the reason I say that it holds up, and this is going to be a common question throughout the series that we're doing, in regard to what games hold up the best and so on. Given that this generation kind of predates us, it's hard for us to really go into it. But think about the classic games, right? That we know from this generation, right? We know Donkey Kong, we know the original Mario Bros. We know Centipede and Joust and Pong. Where are all these games? Galaga, Defender. I don't know if these games were on other consoles. They very well could have been. But when I think about those games, I either think about the arcade cabinets or I think about the Atari.
Yeah. Usually the arcade for me.
Yeah, same, Josh. And part of that is I've been to an arcade very recently.
Yeah.
And comparatively recently, thank you, Pandy. But like that, I've played that. I can't get my Atari. I think it's an Atari 400. I can't get that thing to work to save my life. Otherwise, believe you me, I would be streaming from it. But
dude, I had an HDMI Atari system for a little bit. It was crap though. It was one of those like, what was the company that did the remake of the Genesis and It starts with an A, I want to say.
Yeah. Oh my God. What the
Activision?
No, it's not Activision.
Not Activision, Josh. Let's try.
I'm sure
I know what you're talking
Google
about.
it pretty easily, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, it was like a cheap remake system. It did have HDMI, which was cool. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't have HDMI. Regardless, it had a decent signal transfer. The problem with it was like the controllers sucked. They were wireless, but they sucked. They were like IR.
You have to literally be sitting right in front of the receiver. Yeah.
And it just wasn't that fun to play. It did take an input for the original Atari joysticks. I didn't have any of those. You know, so it kind of, it didn't really satisfy the way the original did. But there are ways to play those games. In fact, I think not Retrobit, but the company that makes your favorite reproduction console.
Hyperkin Hyperkin does have one.
An Atari.
It's like a retro 2600, I think it's called.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I definitely think Atari, when you look back, even though there's something to be said for Intellivision, Coleco, and Commodore, Atari has to be king of this generation, right?
100%. And I do this all the time. I reference my students. They know the Atari 2600.
Yeah.
They know it. Whether they've ever seen one or not or touched one, no, probably not. But they've heard that name.
Yeah.
If you say Coleco, maybe one in my 200 students has heard of it.
Sure.
If you say Intellivision, I guarantee zero have heard of that.
Magnavox.
Magnavox Odyssey, maybe one.
Magnavox Odyssey 2.
Go to bed, Josh.
The video game crash of 1983.
Okay, this is interesting to me because this is something I haven't heard about, really, or haven't thought about.
It became so oversaturated.
That's the main cause, but there was actually some other causes for it as well. Essentially, in 1983, video games had been such a craze for a while. Everyone was dumping money into it, but to the point that and we just listed off a bunch of consoles. Like Josh said, there was some crazy oversaturation in the market,
there's no like one yet.
Right. There's so many other reasons that I did a little bit of a dive on this earlier today, and I jotted down some of the stuff. It's kind of interesting, like one thing was poorly made games, right? People were rushing games out as fast as they possibly could. Oversaturation, for an example, this kind of plays into both of these two reasons. There was 10 million Atari consoles on that had been sold, right?
That's huge.
Okay.
With regards to the game E.T., this game was made in 6 months. It had a 6-month deadline to be produced, and they produced 12 million cartridges.
Jesus fuck.
For only 10 million consoles?
For 10 million consoles. Their idea was that the cartridge would sell the consoles. The problem is the game sucked. Only 7 million were sold, and most of those were sent back to the manufacturer. They were returned and sent back to the manufacturer because they sucked. 5 million cartridges were sent back to the manufacturer, which
sucks.
Insane. Let's see. I kind of fudged my notes a little bit here. So this caused a $130 million loss.
Oh my God.
To Atari.
That's absolutely nuts.
Which was devastating. Another issue was there wasn't very good copyright protection in this time. One of the reasons you see so many different consoles in that time, a lot of them we didn't mention, is a lot of people were just copying the Atari and putting out their own Atari and putting out their own crappy games that you could play on them. And so people started to see like the cost benefit between, owning these systems, these high costs for consoles at the time. You got to remember this was the 80s and these consoles were like $200, man. Like inflation wise, that's a considerable amount of money. Like we complain when our modern consoles are higher than, $200 or $300. You know what I'm saying? And so they were getting these expensive consoles and these really shitty, like overproduced games. People started losing faith in the industry.
Worth noting that what did you say? 130 million?
$136 million loss.
Yeah. So that $136 million loss, to put it in perspective, is like worth
500 something million.
$380 million loss. Adjusted for inflation. That's wild. Huge.
Yeah. That's a big loss.
I mean, that's life breaking for every executive at that company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this ultimately led to the video game crash. Like, we'll talk about Nintendo next week and what it did for gaming. Nintendo was a huge risk coming off of this. And we'll dive deeper into that next week.
Taking huge risks because they existed.
What do you mean?
They had the Game & Watch already, and
they had the Game & Watch.
Oh, yeah. I meant NES. I meant specifically the NES, not right. Nintendo as a company.
They were in arcades and somehow handhelds.
Investors started pulling out all over the place. People saw video games as like a big, money pit, and like we almost lost video games forever because of this.
If it wasn't for
God, where would we be?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's why I have faith in them.
So that's kind of like the bad thing that came out of Gen 1 of video games. But let's kind of shift gears a little bit, and we can close off the show with this. The overall influence. What would you guys say, Gen 1? What would you say the overall influence this had on gaming as a whole? Josh, let's start with you.
All right. So I think this generation started with the idea of having arcades in your house, basically, right? And so this is the first run at how do we do this? And each one of these, there would never be so many consoles in our day and age, which is ironic because we have more technology now, but like it's not happening. More consoles are not coming out predominantly, like large ones on the market. So they were just grinding them out. So it was basically like throwing darts at a board to see how this could work. And, some things were done right. Some things were done wrong. They were obviously perfected by Nintendo, basically the formula, at least for like how to do this. But I think a lot of these guys like did have like a lot of things that I'm sure Nintendo was like taking notes at things that were like hitting and missing, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of them like did anything like gratuitous like to like help the industry, if I'm being honest, because they almost fucked it up by like getting like carried away with it. But they did kind of show us that it was possible to put video games in our house, which is like a start. Yeah, and then again later was like done better. So yeah, why not?
Mac, what about you, man?
When I was in high school, I took a digital electronics class, and one of the projects that I was given, my best friend's dad was our teacher. And he said, take apart an old video game console. Go to a junkyard, get a broken one, take it apart. I found an old NES and took it apart. And I realized in the NES controller, there's a sum total of one chip in the whole thing. It's a bunch of buttons, one chip. Amazing. And to me, that means this generation 1 or 0 or whatever you're calling it, is pushing the boundaries of what can be accomplished with a single programmable logic device.
True.
These devices were incredibly simple and in real time found a way to draw an image on a screen.
Yeah.
The games, by and large, didn't do a whole lot. There's a couple of standouts, and we've mentioned them. Pac-Man, Galaga.
Pac-Man was huge. It was the most popular game in the world.
Absolutely. And a Centipede and those sorts of things. So clearly someone did something right somewhere along the line. However, as soon as they tried to go any further with it. They didn't understand the time constraints and the work necessary to put into it. So I think they learned what not to do.
Yeah,
really is what happened here. They learned how to stretch the boundaries of a single programmable logic device and how not to go about it.
Yeah.
Which is I say it all the time. That's the first step of learning and growing. You have to identify what doesn't work before you can actually move forward with what does. And as we get on into the Nintendo era, the first generation that the three of us were part of, we'll start to see how learning lessons as viewed from other companies, viewed from outside, really pays off as we move forward into the second generation.
Absolutely. I don't know that I could really put it better than how you guys said it. So I'll just kind of sum up what we have here. Essentially, the first gaming generation gave us that spark, right? It gave us that joy of having these games in our home and that knowledge that we could. And it also, like you said, Zach, kind of showed us what not to do going forward. And that's really important. And, without these things, we wouldn't even be sitting here having this conversation today.
Right.
Right. So, like, regardless of the fact that in our individual lives, the three of us haven't had much experience with these consoles, they indirectly have had one of the biggest influences in our lives in general. So,
yeah.
I think that's huge. So you got to give these credit.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, any closing thoughts?
She totally knows your name.
Yeah.
It's funny. Closing thoughts. It definitely is not the strongest generation in gaming. I will say that.
No,
however, the
and
ideas were aplenty, and what did they say? Restraint breeds creativity, and so there is a lot of creativity floating around with an extraordinarily restricted amount of software at their disposal, basically hardware.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was literally, like you're saying, like one chip, and they're trying to figure out how to do this on your fucking TV. So props, bravo to the forefathers. Now on to the professionals.
Let's get on to the good stuff.
Yeah, we'll get to the good stuff.
That's all I have to say.
Well,
it did good.
Zach, did you have anything else you wanted to say on it?
Nope. Josh hit it exactly. That's exactly what I wanted to say.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah,
well,
until next time.
Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is Difficult Podcast. If you're watching this live on Twitch, you're on my Twitch channel. I just recently started getting back to my regular schedule of streaming. So that means on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I do... Sorry, Thursdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay. That was my old... Man, I'm out of practice. I haven't been streaming since I bought this house. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, my mistake. We'll be doing either whatever game that I'm playing currently, or we'll be doing Brawler Bros with Adam and or Zach. And then on Saturdays, we have Samurai Saturday. We always play a samurai game. Kind of an exception for Okami right now, but that's, deep Japanese mythology based. So we're it's adjacent. It's samurai adjacent for sure.
Yeah.
Adjacent.
And and then of course the podcast here on Sunday nights every week. We're here. If you're watching on YouTube, please share it. That's what we need. We need you to share the love. And then don't forget to join our Discord as well. I'll get that link in the chat. And if you want to yell at me on Twitter, it's at Ryugami-sama. And that's about it. Josh, where can we find you, my guy?
Yes, Lord Yeshua and Lord Yeshua TTV on all my stuff. And watch me break records in Donkey Kong. And I don't know what else I stream these days. That's pretty much it. That's all I care to stream. But maybe something else. I don't know. What's coming out? Nothing.
Elden Ring. There's actually a lot of really good games coming out this year. There's a lot of really good games.
Should I stream Elden Ring? Interesting.
I'm going to. Maybe we can stream it together.
That'd be cool. I also thought about not wanting to do it with other people though, because I don't know. Every time I play a Souls-like with other people, I feel like I just don't learn very well.
Yeah, I get that to a degree. I think it really depends on who you play with.
Maybe I play a little bit by myself.
Because I definitely have played Souls-like games with people that just want to drag me through,
Colin,
and then
he's just amazing at it. It's like, and his level like 100, and it's just
and then I've also played Souls-like games with people that want me to learn and kind of get a feel for what's going on and guide me through it. Zach, where can we find you, man?
You can find me on Twitch at Another Letdown. I will be live on Wednesday for Zach Sucks at Games, playing Marvel Spider-Man for PS5. Almost done with that now. And I will be live on Saturday for the return of Watching Paint Dry. It's been a few weeks because of the holidays and whatnot, and we were just absolutely fragged last night and we didn't bother. But we're looking forward to painting some more Marvel Crisis Protocol with Paul's brother Adam and our friend Mike. And it's a good time, good chill art stream. And I'm on Twitter at DENONCZD and YouTube as Another Letdown CF. And it sounds to me like we might have another This Is Difficult Versus in the works if Josh can successfully convince us to play Sky on the Switch.
Get Sky, download it right now and get that shit in. And
I'm pretty sold. We just need to schedule it.
It is free, so selling it is easy.
That is a good selling point.
I will say the only issue with the game
real
quick is let me know when you guys download it and are ready to join, because like kind of difficult to like meet your friends in it for the first time, and then after the first time it's like really easy.
Cool.
Okay. Took me and Colin like forever, but anyway.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks again. Have an awesome night. We'll see you guys next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All right.